Two warriors, two paths. One, a soldier of the light, bound by a code so rigid it defined his very soul. The other, a shadow, bound by only one thing: the mission. In our previous video, we explored what the samurai and the ninja did. Today, we discover why they did it. This is not a battle of steel. It is a battle of ideologies, a battle of the mind. To understand this divide, we must first understand their world. Feudal Japan was a landscape of near-constant conflict. Warlords, or daimyo, vied for control of territory, power, and the favor of the shogun. In this brutal, shifting landscape, two opposing philosophies emerged, born from two very different needs. One was the philosophy of the ruling class, designed to create order and stability. The other was the philosophy of the unconventional, born from the harsh realities of espionage and war. One philosophy is a magnificent, unbending pillar of steel. The other is formless, like water. And the question we will explore is this: what is true strength? Is it the will to never, ever bend? Or is it the ability to adapt, to change, to become whatever the moment requires? Let us begin with the pillar of steel. The philosophy of the samurai, Bushido, the way of the warrior. This wasn't just a rule book. It was a complete moral framework, a spiritual operating system for Japan's ruling military class. You must understand, the samurai were not just soldiers. They were the aristocrats, the politicians, the police, and the judiciary, all rolled into one. For a society to function under their rule, they needed a code that was absolute, public, and predictable. Bushido was that code. It was a philosophy of self-control. The first and most important pillar of Bushido was chugi, or absolute loyalty. A samurai's life did not belong to him. It belonged to his lord. This was not a business arrangement. It was a spiritual bond that superseded all else, even family. If a samurai's lord commanded him to march into a battle that was certain death, the samurai would not question it. He would thank his lord for the opportunity to serve. Why this extremity? Because in an age of constant betrayal, a lord's most valuable asset was the unwavering, fanatical loyalty of his retainers. Bushido ensured this. It taught that the act of obedience was its own victory. The outcome of the battle was secondary. To betray one's lord, or to even consider one's own self-interest, was the ultimate sin. It was a stain on the soul that could never be washed away. The second pillar was meiyo, or honor. This is the part of Bushido we are most familiar with, and it governed every aspect of a samurai's life. Honor in everything. A samurai's word was his bond. He did not lie, he did not cheat, and he certainly did not engage in trickery. His katana was not just a weapon. It was considered the physical embodiment of his soul. To draw it was a grave matter, and to use it was a sacred act. This is why combat, for the samurai, was a ritual. You fought your enemy face to face. You looked him in the eye. It was common practice to shout your name, your family, and your lineage before a duel, and your opponent would do the same. This wasn't just posturing. It was a sign of respect. It was an acknowledgement that you were both warriors, bound by the same code, about to test your skill in a pure, honorable contest, to strike from the shadows, to use poison, to attack an unsuspecting foe. These things were unthinkable. It was not war to them. It was cowardly. It was a defilement of the very principles they lived for. A samurai would rather die than win in a way that brought him mayonaki, or dishonor. This rigid adherence to form was, in their minds, what separated them from mere bandits or brawlers. They were a class above, and their honor was the proof. This brings us to the most alien and perhaps most crucial pillar of Bushido, the acceptance of death. A samurai did not fear dying. He only feared dying in disgrace. The philosophy taught that by accepting death as an inevitable companion, a warrior could free himself from the fear of death. And a warrior without fear is the most effective warrior of all. They called this kakugo, or resolve. It was the calm, settled acceptance of one's fate. This is where the practice of seppuku, or ritual suicide, comes in. To a modern mind, it seems shocking. But in the world of the samurai, it was the final, ultimate expression of control and honor. If a samurai had failed his lord, or been captured by an enemy, or brought deep shame upon his name, seppuku was his only recourse. It was a way to cleanse his spirit, to prove that even though his actions had failed, his soul was still pure, still in control. It was a way to rob his enemies of a victory, and to die on his own terms. This beautiful death was considered far superior to a long, comfortable life lived in disgrace. So, Bushido was a rigid, unbending framework. It had to be. It created a class of warriors who were loyal, predictable, and fearless. It was the steel spine that held their entire society together. It was a philosophy of the absolute loyalty, absolute honor, absolute control, and the absolute acceptance of death. Now, let us turn to the shadows. Let us look at the philosophy born from a completely different need. The philosophy of the ninja. Ninpo. If Bushido is the way of the warrior, Ninpo is the art of endurance, or the way of perseverance. And if Bushido is a rigid moral framework, Ninpo is a ruthless, practical manual for winning. The ninja, or shinobi, were not the ruling class. They were agents, spies, and commandos. They were often hired by the very same daimyo who employed the samurai to do the dirty work that Bushido forbade. Their origins are debated, but their philosophy was forged in the fires of necessity. They were the pragmatists. Ninpo has only one absolute guiding principle: achieve the mission. The mission is everything, and a crucial, inseparable part of that principle is to survive. Where the samurai saw honor, the ninja saw a fatal weakness. Where the samurai lived to act honorably, the ninja lived to succeed. Think about that distinction. A samurai who fought bravely and died for his lord was a hero. His honorable failure was a success. A ninja who failed his mission was just a failure. There was no honor in it. There was only the result. This is why the ninja's code was the absence of a rigid code. Theirs was a philosophy of total adaptation. Deception, to the ninja, wasn't dishonorable. It was a primary tool. It was an art form. Why challenge a heavily armed samurai to a duel he might win? Why not poison his food, or strike him with a poison dart from the darkness? Why fight an entire patrol when you could wear a disguise and simply walk right past them? The ninja was a master of kyojitsu, the art of blending falsehood and truth. He was a master of psychology. He knew the samurai's code, and he exploited it. He knew the samurai would expect a face-to-face challenge, so he would never offer one. He knew the samurai was proud, so he would use that pride to lure him into a trap. The ninja spent months, even years, disguised as a simple farmer, a traveling monk, or a merchant. He would listen, gather information, and map the enemy's defenses. The real art of the ninja wasn't just in the silent assassination. It was in the information he gathered. It was in the rumors he planted. A well-placed rumor could make a lord execute his own general for treason, achieving the mission without the ninja ever drawing a weapon. This extends to the very idea of combat. If a ninja was discovered, his first priority was not to fight, but to escape. A dead ninja cannot complete the mission. A dead agent cannot deliver his intelligence. So, where the samurai would stand and fight to the death, the ninja would throw a smoke bomb and disappear. He would play dead. He would beg for mercy. He would do anything that his enemy would see as cowardly, because he didn't care about their labels. If an enemy thought he was a coward, that enemy would underestimate him, and an underestimated opponent is one who is easy to defeat. Even their tools were a reflection of this philosophy. The samurai's armor was bright, ornate, and designed to be seen, to announce his presence and status. The ninja's outfit, the shinobi shuzoku, which was traditionally dark blue or gray, not pure black, was designed to blend in with the night. Their tools were practical: climbing claws, grappling hooks, and small, easily concealed weapons. They used metsubushi, or eye closers, which were hollowed-out eggs filled with sand or pepper, designed to blind an opponent so the ninja could escape. This was not a code of honor. It was a manual for winning. It was a philosophy of the relative. Everything was relative to the mission. This is the great philosophical divide the samurai lived to prove his honor. The ninja lived to see the mission completed. Think of it this way. Bushido is a castle wall. It is magnificent, strong, and built on unbending principle. It is visible to everyone for miles, and it commands respect. It is a symbol of power, but it is static. It cannot move. It must wait for the attack. It has blind spots. Its very rigidity, its greatest strength, is also its weakness. Ninpo is the water. It is formless. It is adaptive. You cannot strike it with a sword. It can be a gentle mist, a quiet puddle, a flowing river, or a devastating tsunami. It does not fight the castle wall head-on. It does not waste its energy trying to break the stone. Instead, the water flows around the wall. It seeps into the tiniest, unseen cracks in the foundation. It finds the one path the builder never considered: the unguarded supply line, the loose stone, the corruptible guard. It seeks the path of least resistance, and it gets inside, silently. The samurai's code is the crack in the wall. His need for an honorable duel is a predictable weakness. His pride is a weakness. His unwillingness to adapt is a weakness. And the ninja, as the water, is the master of exploiting that predictability. In the end, we have two different warriors, built for two different purposes. One was the public face of power, the operating system of an entire society. The other was its secret hand, the hidden script running in the background. The samurai, bound by his code, lived to die a beautiful death. The ninja, bound only by his goal, lived to win, no matter what it took. One lived by the book. The other wrote his own. This isn't a simple question of good versus evil, or right versus wrong. It is a question of philosophy, a question that is still alive today. So, which philosophy wins this battle of the mind? The unbending code of honor, or the formless path to victory? Leave your verdict in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more journeys into the warrior's mind.